Hey folks, this is Riker, and let me tell you a tale about 3 aRPGs. One is on a hot streak, one is in crisis mode, and one is saying, trust us, we got a 10-year plan. Last Epoch just launched Season 2, and it's hitting all the right notes. A smooth launch, glowing community sentiment, solo-friendly systems, a lot of Path of Exile 2 refugees are having a great time. Meanwhile, PoE 2 is deep in what can only be described as a loot-based existential crisis. The devs are patching quickly, which is great. But if nobody's getting dopamine from monster drops, are we even really playing any RPG anymore? Then there's Diablo 4, quietly trucking along with a roadmap that left players scratching their heads asking, that's it? But Blizzard says more is coming, and apparently they're taking a look at the skill tree and endgame. Outside the RPG world, Baldur's Gate 3 dropped one final massive patch before riding off into the sunset. Bungie finally revealed Marathon, and immediately got roasted for it. And a long-rumored Oblivion remaster basically leaked all over the internet, just in time to overshadow Skyblivion's 13-year fan project. Oh, and apparently the Mass Effect and Dragon Age teams at Bioware hated each other, which kind of explains a lot. It's a big week in gaming. We'll cover all those stories and more as we dive into this news roundup. But before we dive into everything, we'll start with some quick aRPG news and a word from this video's sponsor, Torchlight Infinite. Their new season, Sandlord, dropped April 17th, and it's still going to be one of their biggest updates yet. This time, they're leaning hard into economy-driven gameplay. They're introducing an entire new layer on top of standard loot grinding. It's centered around the Cloud Oasis. It's a floating island hub that you're going to build up over time. You'll be collecting a new currency called Floating Island Coins, earned by defeating monsters, and you're using that to develop your oasis. You're going to recruit sand pirates as workers, assign them roles like miner, chef, aviator, mercenary, and you're going to start developing passive income through all these different professions. You'll establish trade routes. You're going to have strategic decisions around efficiency and risk. It's a surprisingly involved system, and it brings a layer of city building to the aRPG grind. And while you're upgrading your Oasis, the core gameplay loop also gets a big upgrade. There's a new hero trait for Thea called Blasphemer. Instead of stacking blessings like before, this version sacrifices them, turning that power into a single target erosion-based curse called Desecration. There's new legendary items, some of which are tailored to help players bridge into the higher difficulties. The Deep Space endgame has been fully reworked to feature tougher enemies, stacking loot modifiers, and new danger mechanics. You'll also find secret realms, which are rare maps with unique twists, like loot rooms with no enemies, just tons of loot chests, or some will have unique boss summoning mechanics. On top of all that, this marks Torchlight's 2nd anniversary, and to celebrate, they're doing a huge giveaway called Sands of Fortune. As you play, you'll earn spins on a prize wheel with chances to win in-game items from a prize pool valued at $250,000. There's also a daily login event, anniversary bundles, and some powerful new pact spirits. Sands of Fortune runs until May 2nd. So whether you want to try out Torchlight for the first time or dive back into the update, click the link in the description to try out the new season. So, starting with Last Epoch news, the launch of Season 2, Tombs of the Erased, has been kind of a banger. And by kind of, I mean totally and completely. Not only did the servers hold up shockingly well, we did get some LE52 errors for the first hour or so, but as far as aRPG launches go, it was relatively smooth. But on top of that, player sentiment is glowing. For a lot of aRPG players, Last Epoch is bringing the fun back to the genre. For solo players, Last Epoch might just be the most welcoming aRPG out there right now. There's a system called the Circle of Fortune, which is essentially a solo self-found guild that lets you still play with your friends. It's built from the ground up for that experience. Target farming, curated loot paths, and zero pressure to trade or party up. People who haven't played Last Epoch since launch, or new players altogether, are enjoying breezing through the campaign, running into loot lizards and nemesis mobs and the new champion mobs, which all add spice and excitement to the different zones as you're going through the campaign. Shrines feel amazing in Last Epoch. They really juice them up. Every shrine feels fun and meaningful. Leveling is fast, it's impactful, it's full of loot that actually matters. I get crafting materials in great enough abundance to feel like I can actually consistently craft throughout the campaign, but I'm not drowning in them to the point that I feel I have infinite resources. Everything is just always in the Goldilocks zone. I've heard some people question whether the campaign is too easy. Look, is it too easy if you're following a build guide that has been theory crafted by a top player in the game? Is it too easy if you are following the meta powerful builds? Yeah, probably. Is it too easy for someone playing blind, putting their own build together? Is it too easy for a new player to aRPGs? Probably not. Ultimately, Last Epoch sits in a nice place between Diablo 4 and Path of Exile 2. It's that Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold, it feels just right. PoE 2 makes you struggle too much, D4 is too effortless, and Last Epoch is currently hitting the right balance of progression pace. At least initially, we'll see in a week once people are deep into the endgame, but the experience Last Epoch gives you, at least during your first couple of play sessions, is just plain fun and enjoyable. Concurrent player counts on Steam peaked at 150,000, and I expect us to see this weekend top that number. The all-time concurrent player count peak for Last Epoch was 265,000 14 months ago. That was at launch. So still being able to bring back over half your launch numbers over a year ago, that's really good. Last Epoch also reached the 5th best-selling game on Steam this week, so Season 2 is also bringing in a lot of new players. Now, we've previously spoken about all the new content and big changes coming with Season 2, but there were a few more things that didn't get covered during Hype Week. Direct peer-to-peer trade was removed from the game. The dev said that people rarely used it, and instead used either the gift feature within parties to basically mail items to their friends, or the Trade House Bazaar to buy and sell items without needing to interact with another player at all. Instead, P2P trading was mostly used for real money trade like gold sellers, so good riddance. And for the Bazaar, they added a 15% tax paid for by the buyer. They added this as a gold sink. It's something we've seen historically successfully added in many games, economies over the generations of games. And I know that sounds like a bad thing superficially, but it really helps keep the economy in check and stop runaway inflation. Also, the devs are clearly listening to the community. For instance, they were initially against allowing mastery respecs, like very firmly opposed to it, but the community wanted it, so they gave in. Now, one thing added to the game that isn't perfect, still very good, they've added WASD movement, again, which is great. And they did clarify that it is currently in, it's an experimental feature for now. It does not feel quite as smooth as in PoE 2, but I'm glad that they added it, I've been using it, and I'm sure they're going to keep working on it to help smooth it out. Oh, quick reminder folks, either grab a loot filter or configure your own. You can configure your own in-game, no need for third-party tools or a degree in coding or anything. But let's hear from you folks. If you've been playing Last Epoch this season, what's been your favorite change so far? Or if you haven't tried it yet, what's holding you back? Alright, over in Path of Exile 2 news, things are complicated. Patch 0.2.0F dropped with a bunch of quality of life improvements. You can now respec your Ascendancy class, we got new stash tab affinities, stuns on players were toned down, belts level 30 and above now implicitly have charm slots, pinnacle bosses at difficulty 0 offer unlimited respawn attempts. All these are great changes. This was a good patch that addressed things that players have been talking about almost since launch in many cases. And I want to stress before going on, it's really great that the devs are deploying these rapid patches. This is what early access is all about. Now, that said, these changes, while good, again, are not distracting players from the core issues right now. Recent Steam reviews had rebounded to mixed after last week's couple of patches, but they're now back to mostly negative. The current state of the game has been called, by some players, tedious. It's been called joyless, hostile to casuals. You want to try a fun off-meta build like a bleed ritualist? Yeah, good luck. Unless you're using one of a very few specific builds, progression just crawls. Attribute requirements are so strict that it makes hybrid attribute builds incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to pull off. The passive tree just lacks those big juicy attribute nodes that really helped fill in the requirements in PoE 1. I've seen PoE 2 described as a game in which you're just managing downsides. Every good thing comes at the expense of something else. You're not building around optimizing strengths, you're building around mitigating pain. It's like the game punishes you for wanting to have fun. Armor makes you slower. It's also less useful than Energy Shield, because it doesn't defend against everything that Energy Shield defends against. Why does it have a downside if it's also the worst defense? If it's gonna make you slower, shouldn't it be the most powerful form of defense to compensate? Ascendancy trials are more painful and tedious than in PoE 1. They do appeal to a small portion of the player base, which is great. I'm fully in favor of there being activities in the game that target specific kinds of players. I don't think everything in the game has to appeal to everyone, but this is an activity that everyone needs to do. Like, core character power is locked behind it. You are forced to do it. And there's many players that don't want to do it so bad that they pay other people to carry them through it. Then there's also smaller things like, why aren't customizable loot filters built into the game at this point? You know, Last Epoch has raised the bar here by letting players build their own loot filters directly in-game. Why do PoE players have to rely on external resources or editing game files to set up a core function in the game? PoE, they were the trailblazers in loot filters, and now they've fallen behind. But all that really is ancillary to what is the biggest issue right now. Loot is too scarce, including crafting currency. The game is clearly balanced around trade. You're better off spending whatever currency you do find on trading for the item that you need, rather than praying to find a good drop as a base, or just wasting your own limited crafting currency on gambling for a good upgrade, because it's always a gamble. And it's just not feasible to craft your way through the campaign. Alchemy orbs and exalts should be much more common. But even then, good bases to craft on just don't drop often enough. Ultimately, the heart of the aRPG genre has always been about the loot. Distilled to its most basic form, the fundamental allure is click on something, whether it's a monster, whether it's a chest, whether it's a barrel, whatever. Click on thing, get random loot drop. It's the absolute most basic dopamine hit there is. Combat is the fun gameplay built around that basic reward structure, but if you take the loot drops out of an aRPG, then you're left with something hollow. And right now, for a lot of players, there just isn't enough dopamine hits relative to the challenge. Now, some people say, well, the reward for beating difficult content is the feeling of, pride and accomplishment you get for overcoming the challenge. That in itself ought to be reward enough. And I say no, not in a loot-based game. That works for Dark Souls. That works for other genres in which the core of the game is to overcome the challenge of the game. That doesn't work in a genre whose gameplay loop is exclusively about chasing rewards and overcoming the obstacles in the way of those rewards. It doesn't work in a genre that is all about optimizing the challenge out of the game as much as possible to make delivering the juicy loot to me as efficient as possible. In a loot-based game, there's an expectation that tackle big challenge, get big reward. And that reward doesn't necessarily have to be loot, right? Some kind of difficult ascendancy trial, for instance, locking character power behind it, that you can do that kind of stuff as well. But when you're faced with mandatory, unskippable challenges in a loot-based game, and you're not given a reward thereafter, and well, now I'm progressing deeper into the game, and everything is becoming more challenging, and I am not stronger now because I didn't get any loot reward, it just doesn't work. Anyway, during podcast appearances, Jonathan said he'd look into the loot situation, and later on that they actually ran simulations and found that drop rates were not operating as intended. So people weren't just crazy, the loot actually was scarcer than intended. He also said on the podcast that he'd be open to streaming his own gameplay of PoE 2, something a lot of people in the community have asked to see the devs do, sort of like, well, why don't you show us how we're supposed to be playing this game and whether it's actually possible to pull off these combos and all that. And honestly, props to Jonathan for even entertaining the idea, because that's really putting yourself out in the hot seat there. Not many devs would do that. Anyway, later this week, after much belaboring of the loot situation from the community, we did get word from GGG that they were going to address the loot situation. However, the way they're addressing it will be to improve loot on bosses and on Asmarian wisps, which is, I mean, sure, we'll take it, but it doesn't really address the greater issue. Now, I do want to end here by reiterating how great GGG has been throughout all of this. Being invited onto community podcasts during a time of hostility from a lot of the community, agreeing to do so, taking the time to do so, during a time that they are exhausted from the grind to release the patch, continuing to put in the long hours to push out more updates as quickly as possible to address the feedback. The community really needs to understand that these are devs who go above and beyond. What other company that operates on the same level of size and success of grinding gear games does the same? Name me one. Look, we can disagree with certain design decisions, you can dislike the direction of the game, but you can't say that the devs are not passionate or that they don't care. And on a lighter note, some people have killed rogue exiles in the game and gotten swords and flails to drop. Yeah, like the item type that is not yet in the game yet, but is apparently in the game. You could grab them, you can equip them. We have no skills that support them, but hey, it's nice to see that they're coming along. Anyway, folks, what do you think? Is PoE 2 on the right track, or has the grind lost its shine? Sound off in the comments. On to some Diablo news. Next Thursday, we're getting the campfire chat for Season 8, which releases on April 29th. The live stream will be on the 24th at 11 a.m. PDT. If you're wondering what Season 8 is all about, I've got this video for you here. As a reminder, we got the Diablo 2025 roadmap reveal last week. Do check out my interview video for that one. And in the wake of the tepid community response to the roadmap, Adam Fletcher dropped a couple juicy tidbits on Reddit. He said, quote, "We've seen a bunch of comments and feedback over the last few days, noting that they believe the roadmap is a totality of everything that is coming. I do want to assure everyone that we are very self-aware of some of the items players are yearning for, and I do want to confirm that we are looking at many of these items, including skill trees and adjustments related to that, endgame and making that experience better for all players, and plenty more. The roadmap will get updated as we march through, and more of the items people are talking about will start to be revealed along with all the details behind each of these updates. Skill trees, endgame. Now these are things that would have been exciting to see on the roadmap. Now, one thing we saw on the roadmap was an IP collab happening in Season 8. Well, it was revealed this week that the collab is with Berserk, the manga series by Kentaro Miura. It seems this collab is coming to both Diablo 4 and Diablo Immortal. We don't have any details, just a short animation and the words, "Trace the path of the Black Swordsman and you have been branded." Berserk is a critically acclaimed manga series set in a dark fantasy world inspired by medieval Europe, not unlike Diablo, and is well known for its violence and gore. I'm not familiar with Berserk myself, but it sounds like it fits. What can we expect from this collab? I just expect shop cosmetics in D4. As for Immortal, probably shop cosmetics and maybe some kind of mini event. Now, we also have some rumors floating around that Diablo 4 will be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, which comes from known leaker Ecstasis, who has proven himself to be reliable in the past. We've had a few leaks from him over the past few months, and they've time and again proven to be true. Given that Diablo 3 launched on the Switch 1, and that was kind of a big deal at the time, it would be a safe bet to expect Diablo 4 on Switch 2. Then, separately, in a multi-person interview hosted by journalist Stephen Totillo for GameFile, Diablo general manager Rod Ferguson was asked, quote, "How are you thinking about the next big inflection point and installment for Diablo? Because that's a storied franchise that has legs." His response was, quote, "We're here for the long haul. We've been doing long-range planning recently, and I've created a roadmap, a 10-year roadmap. It was actually a 12-year roadmap. I can see this, and all these different things that we can do, which is really inspiring. And it's really exciting. We're focused on what players want. I can't tell you much more than that." Now, some people interpreted this to mean that they have internally a 10-year roadmap for Diablo 4. And I'll remind everyone that Rod is the boss of Diablo as a franchise, not just Diablo 4. So that 10-year roadmap probably includes Diablo 4 expansions, Diablo Immortal content drops, possibly other spin-off games or projects, like a Netflix series, who knows. Probably has Diablo 5 on it as well. So, person in charge of highly lucrative 30-year-old franchise has plans for franchise's future. is not exactly the major headline that some people are making it out to be. Now, in some Diablo adjacent news, it looks like a Blizzard franchise might be getting the old Netflix treatment. Jez Corden, reliable leaker and co-host of the Xbox 2 podcast, says he's heard a Blizzard IP is headed to Netflix. He didn't name which franchise, but let's be honest, we're not working with a huge pool here. You got Warcraft, Starcraft, Diablo, and Overwatch, unless Netflix has taken a surprise stab at Heroes of the Storm, the animated series, which, I mean, hey, I'd watch it. Now, if any of this sounds familiar, it's because Blizzard and Netflix were already in talks back around 2019. In fact, rumors were flying that Diablo and Overwatch series were in development. We effectively had a confirmation, in fact, of a Diablo Netflix series by the showrunner himself via a leak. But everything fell apart in 2020 when Activision Blizzard sued Netflix for allegedly poaching their CFO. So if this new rumor is true, it might be a revival of those old projects. Jez says the reveal might happen at BlizzCon, but next BlizzCon won't be until September 2026, so... Anyway, folks, what do you think? If Blizzard is finally making a Netflix series, which franchise do you want to see brought to life? And what don't you want to see them screw up? Then in some Elder Scrolls news, it looks like the rumors were true. An Oblivion remaster is all but confirmed after a developer leak exposed everything but the release trailer. Screenshots, file names, cover art, even a deluxe edition with, yes, the return of the infamous horse armor. It all showed up on the website of developer Virtuos. According to insiders, the remaster is going to run on the original Oblivion logic of the game Brio engine, but with graphics and improvements layered on through Unreal Engine 5. So it's not quite a remake, but definitely more than just higher resolution textures. According to one of the many leaks from over the past months and years, there's going to be some quality of life updates and improvements to combat mechanics. This is per a LinkedIn profile, but we'll have to wait and see for confirmation. Leaks suggest the reveal is imminent, with a full shadow drop expected before the end of the month. And you might be wondering, what about Sky Oblivion, that fan-made remake that's been in development for over a decade? Well, the team behind it isn't mad. In fact, the project lead, Rebel's Eyes, posted that this changes nothing. Sky Oblivion is still a passion project, and he's sending all love and no hate to the devs behind the official remaster. And really, it's a win-win for fans. The official remaster is perfect for console players who can't really enjoy Sky Oblivion, and Sky Oblivion will offer a more integrated experience, playing Oblivion inside Skyrim's engine, while also having the ability to take your character, play through Skyrim, and then take that same character through the Oblivion campaign, or vice versa. You can change the order, I guess. But what's your take, folks? Are you hyped for the official remaster, or are you holding out for Sky Oblivion instead? Or is it a case of ¿Por qué no los dos? Then in some Baldur's Gate 3 news, patch 8 just dropped, and it's a big one. Like, 48 pages of patch notes big. If this were all printed out, you'd have to take a long rest midway through reading them. This is the final major content update for the game, and Larian made it count. Every class just got a brand new subclass with new abilities, new animations, new visual effects, even some voiced lines, including a full performance for the Oathbreaker Knight if you're playing a Crown Paladin. They also added a full photo mode, so you can now freeze frame your party mid-battle, mid-smooch, mid-yeeting a goblin off a cliff. And if you've been waiting to play with that one friend who's stubbornly on console, well, good news, Baldur's Gate 3 now has full cross-play and cross-progression across PC, Mac, Xbox, and PlayStation. Larian says this is the last patch to include new content, so no new story beats, no surprise companion romances, just bug fixes going forward. But as far as swan songs go, this one hits all the right notes. Then in some Bungie news, the long-awaited Marathon gameplay reveal has arrived and, not exactly winning hearts. The trailer dropped to a flood of downvotes, about 50-50 upvote-downvote ratio, at nearly 800,000 views. And the original video was actually immediately blocked over copyright issues, so great start there. They re-uploaded it, and even on the re-upload, the downvote ratio is pretty bad. If you're wondering what Marathon is, it's Bungie's upcoming team-based extraction shooter set on the lost colony of Tau Ceti 4. You play as a runner, scavenging for loot, power, and whatever mysterious sci-fi stuff Bungie decides to drip-feed us. Closed alpha begins April 23rd, and the game officially launches on September 23rd. Now, on paper, it sounds solid. Cyberpunk aesthetics, Bungie's signature gun feel, and a unique twist where when the match timer runs out, all exits lock except for one, forcing every remaining team to funnel through the same point. That could lead to some intense last-second extractions, or, just chaos, which is also fun. But the main issue here is that nobody can really tell from the gameplay footage what sets this game apart from everything else in the live service hero shooter with neon colors and $20 skins category. The community reaction is basically, it looks fine, but why should we care? And without a narrative hook or campaign, which is kind of what made the original Marathon so beloved, longtime fans feel like this is a Marathon game only in name. There's also been some backlash over Bungie's decision to remove proximity chat, a core feature in a lot of extraction games. Bungie says that it'll just be too toxic, but many players are asking, why not just give people the ability to toggle off proximity chat? Part of the fun in games like Tarkov is these tense, unscripted moments with other players, right? The weird alliances that form, the betrayals, the last-second teamwork. Without that, Marathon might just end up feeling a little too sterile. And just to twist the knife a bit here, Marathon will be a premium game, but at least not a full-priced game. Bungie says pricing will be revealed this summer, which feels like code for we're still arguing with our publishers about how many microtransactions we can pack into the base edition without getting roasted. But what do you folks think? Does Marathon look like the next big thing, or just another trend-chasing live service that'll be gone in 18 months. Lastly, in some Bioware news, turns out the teams behind Mass Effect and Dragon Age didn't exactly get along. According to former lead writer David Gator, the two franchises were basically being developed by rival camps under the same roof, each with totally different cultures and zero chill for each other's creative choices. Gator, who wrote Dragon Age Origins and Inquisition, says that when he moved over to the Anthem team, formerly the Mass Effect team, they didn't want him there. Like, at all. He was asked by management to write a more fantasy-leaning story for Anthem, but the devs on the team kept pushing back, saying everything he wrote was too Dragon Age, like that was a bad thing. But the real kicker was that Gator claims the team didn't even want to make an RPG. He said, quote, "I won't go into detail about the problems except to say it became clear this was a team that didn't want to make an RPG. They were very anti-RPG, in fact. Yet they wanted me to wave my magic writing wand and create a Bioware quality story without giving me any of the tools I'd need to actually do that." He also touched on the bigger picture that EA as a publisher clearly preferred Mass Effect over Dragon Age. It was flashier, more action-packed, easier to market. According to Gator, even when Dragon Age outperformed Mass Effect, the excuse was always ready. Well, Mass Effect had bad timing, or it was just a weird market window. Meanwhile, Dragon Age was always hovering just a little too close to the chopping block, Gator felt. All this paints a pretty bleak picture of BioWare's internal culture in the post-Doctors era. Co-founders Ray Muzica and Greg Zeshuk, both medical doctors, both of whom retired from BioWare in 2012, months after the release of Mass Effect 3 and a day after announcing a third Dragon Age title. Gator left the company in 2016 after 17 years and a failed push to become a creative director. But what do you folks think? Was this divide between teams what truly sank BioWare's golden age? Sign up for the comments because that's going to wrap up this week's video, but do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discussed how Nintendo has been causing some controversy. Also, yesterday I posted a video on it's a sponsored video, but it's a game I actually find really fun. Lost Skies, new co-op survival game. I built my own version of the Starship Enterprise in it. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rikers Raiders for more gaming content.